It's easy to get caught up in campaign structure and keyword types and negative keywords and all the behind the scenes stuff that's really important to running successful campaigns. But you can't forget that the only thing that the real people who you want to get to your website are actually going to see before deciding whether to visit your website is your ad and your ad copy. And if you don't do a good job with your ad copy, then a lot of the behind-the-scenes work that you spend, or the time you spend on the behind-the-scenes elements of your campaigns is wasted because people just aren't going to click on bad ads, typically. The good news is that there are some proven strategies to writing good ads that get great click-through rates and drive great conversion rates, and I'm going to talk about some strategies and tactics to make that happen. You don't have to love writing in order to write good ads. Sure, it helps. Personally, I love to write. I write books on the side. Writing is kind of a second nature to me. But you don't have to be a great writer to write great ads. You just need to understand what it is you're trying to do with your ads and then some of the strategies and tactics that go into writing those ads. Now, one limitation that everyone faces, whether they're a great writer or a terrible writer, is that you have very limited space with your ad. In your headline, you have 25 characters. That's it. Then you have a line of description under that, which is 35 characters long. Another line of description is also 35 characters long, and then you have your display URL, which is, once again, 35 characters. So within the limitations of those character counts, you have to convince people to click on your ad instead of someone else's ad, and hopefully get them to your website in a mindset that is conducive to whatever conversion you want them to complete on your website. So let's just talk about the difference between headline and description line for a second. Headline, obviously, is the top of your ad. It's what people actually click on to visit your website, and it's hyperlinked. It's usually blue, and the font is larger for your headline than for your description line number 1 and 2 and your display URL. Your description line number 1 and number 2 can sometimes appear on the same line. Particularly if they're in ads that are in the top 3 positions on the search results page, or they can be stacked on top of each other if they're on the right sidebar, or sometimes even if they are on the top of the page. So it's best to consider description line number 1 and number 2 as 2 separate segments and put separate thoughts in those lines because they might be next to each other, they might not be. That's just a best practice. Now, it's not a problem if you write one long sentence that is contained in both of those fields. That's okay. But I would definitely recommend at least testing using those 2 fields as separate thoughts in your ads. Now let's talk about some strategies for great ads and dive right in. First of all, you need to think about what buying stage your user is in. And part of that has to do with the keywords that you're using. So for example, if you're using broader keywords, using our umbrella example, if you're targeting just the word umbrella, well, somebody might be looking to buy an umbrella, but they might also be looking for reviews about umbrellas. They might even be looking for videos about umbrellas or the history of umbrellas, a lot of different things. So someone who just types in umbrella is going to be in a very different stage in the purchasing funnel than someone who types in buy umbrella. And you want to craft your ad copy accordingly. You're already going to structure your ad groups and your campaigns with similar groups of keywords lumped together so that you can show the most relevant ad copy possible with those keywords. And so when you're doing that, think about the buying stage that your user is in when you write the ad. Also, differentiate yourself from competitors. If there is something that sets your company apart from your competitors, then say that in the ad copy. Now, I'm not saying that you want to actually use competitor names in your ad copy because that creates big issues both on trademark side and just a lot of different issues. Don't do that. But if someone is doing research and maybe you offer free shipping and your competitors don't, or maybe your price is best, you could say something like, we have the lowest price, or we are the number 1 marketing software, or whatever the case may be. Obviously, whatever you claim needs to be true and accurate, but definitely try to differentiate yourself from your competitors. Be creative with your ads, but don't be too creative. One example I love of creativity with ad copy is something that I think it was Home Advisor did with their ads, and they may still be doing this. When people would search for Angie's List, Home Advisor would show their ad, and their headline read something like, "Don't use her list." And that was a great way of not using the competitor's name, but obviously anyone who looked for Angie's List, they understand what her is referring to. And it was a really creative way of probably getting a pretty good click-through rate and conversion rate off of a competitor's name, which is a pretty neat tactic. But on the other hand, don't be too creative. If you go out on a limb and use weird stuff in your headline or kind of crazy or fluffy or whatever, you're probably not going to have a very good click-through rate because people will ignore it, or they'll think that it's just annoying ads, or they will just not even look at it. They'll just move on. So be creative. Don't be too creative. Obviously, you can test your ads to see what performs best, and that's how you're going to figure out where that line is between creativity and too much. Also, align your ad text with your landing page. And what I mean by that is that when people click on your ad, they expect to see similar wording or at least a similar offer on the page that they reach. It's a seamless experience. It should be a seamless experience from the customer's perspective. From the small business perspective, it can be really challenging to make that happen because you've got these landing pages that are created at one time and they're pretty much set in stone for a while probably, and then you're cycling through ad copy and you're writing different ad copy for different ad groups, and it's really easy for your ad copy to become very different than your landing page. But the more of a seamless experience you can create between the two, the more you can back up your ad copy with your landing page, the higher your conversion rate is likely to be, and people are less likely to bounce away from your page because they think that you are relevant to what they've already identified as being relevant to them by clicking on your ad. Now let's also talk about some tactics for great ads, some really specific, concrete recommendations for your ads. First of all, be specific. Don't use generalities in your ads. If you can use a dollar amount, use it. If you can use a percentage amount, use it. Instead of saying we've got a great sale, say 25 to 75% off everything in stock today, something like that. Be as specific as possible because people are more likely to click on specific ads. You're also qualifying the traffic a little bit in that you are telling them what to expect when they hit your website because you're telling them exactly what the specific details of the sale or offer are. And it's just a really good strategy or good tactic to be specific. Also, this is really key. Use a strong call to action. A lot of small businesses don't think about that. They write their ads kind of like an encyclopedia listing about what their company is. You know, we are a great marketing automation tool for this or for that. Well, from the customer's perspective, you actually need to pull them into your website. Tell them what to do and why to do that. Use action words, use verbs such as buy now, order now, get free shipping now, things like that. You cannot say click. So you couldn't say, click here for free shipping because that's against AdWords policies. They don't want you using the word click in your ads. In a context in which people are supposed to click on your ad based upon seeing that word. But definitely use great verbs to create strong call to actions. And as much as possible, include that in your headline because the headline is something that is most visible to people. Also, use keywords in your ads. So when someone types their search query into Google, and that triggers your keywords, they're automatically looking for listings that contain the keywords that they're searching for because they know that means that those listings are relevant to them. So that's one reason to use your keywords in your ads because it tells people that your ad is relevant to what they searched for. Another reason is that when you use keywords in your ads, those keywords are boldened. Google automatically emboldens them in your ad copy. So that makes your ads stand out more to people, and people are trained to know that the more boldened your ad or your organic listing is, then the more relevant you probably are to what they just typed into the search the search bar. And then another reason is that when you use keywords in your ads, Google knows that your ads are very relevant to your keywords, and they give your keywords a higher quality score because of that. And quality score is very important because it dictates how often your ad shows, it dictates how much you pay for each click. Quality score is a vital statistic that is based upon your ad relevance, along with a couple other things. Your headline lives and dies by itself. What I mean by that is that many people only read your headline. It's a fact. A lot of people are just skimming through quickly. They see your headline, and either they click on it because they think it's relevant to them, or they move on. So while it is important that your description line number 1 and 2 and your display URL are really very good for the people who do read them, your headline is the most important part of your ad, and spend most of your time on your headline to create a really great headline. And I know it's tough. You only have 25 characters. It's really tough to communicate a lot in 25 characters, but you'd be amazed if you just spend some time thinking about different variations and options. You'd be amazed how much of an offer you can communicate with 25 characters. Here's an interesting tip that a lot of people are not aware of. If you end description line number 1 with a period, Google will sometimes actually insert your entire description line number 1 as part of your headline. So it'll take your headline, and then it will add description line number 1 to it, because by placing that period there, you're telling Google that that's the end of a thought. And that is huge, because that can more than double the size of your headline, and it communicates a lot more in a more clear way to people who are looking at your ad, and that can be a huge boost to click-through rate. So that also ties into the idea of viewing description line number 1 and number 2 as 2 separate thoughts, 2 separate segments. End number 1 with a period, and good things happen. Also, use as much space in your ad as possible. Once again, you got 25 characters in your headline, 35 characters for each description line, number 1 and number 2. Use as much of that space as possible. It looks professional to have text in all the space, and also it makes a larger ad, which the bigger your ad, the better, because you're fighting with everyone else on the search results page for real estate. The bigger you are, the more visible you are. And then obviously, the more text you use, the more you're able to communicate to convince people to click on your ad, and also to do whatever desired conversion it is on your website that you want them to do. Another tactic is to capitalize the first letter of every word. This can feel a little unusual at first, especially if you're capitalizing words like and the and or, but trust me, it actually does work, and Google recommends this. By capitalizing the first letter of each word, it makes it easier to read, it makes it more visible, and it's just a good technique to make use of. Now, you cannot capitalize entire words, with the exception of acronyms. So for example, SAT or GED, if it's a recognized acronym, you can capitalize it. But if it's just a word, like free or shipping or whatever, you cannot capitalize that per Google's policies, and you won't be able to run that ad. Another idea, which I make use of strongly, my team makes use of for our clients, is to use keywords in your display URL. Now, actually, let me hop over to the AdWords account and show you something about the display URL. So you can see in this example, the display URL is this green area down here. It has your URL, and then it has whatever you want to type after that. Now, this is different than your destination URL. Let me click on here and actually edit this. So your final, I shouldn't say destination URL, Google used to call the landing page URL that you put into the ad destination URL. They updated that terminology. Now it's final URL. So that's just a little historical note for you there. But your final URL is the actual page to which you're sending traffic. Your display URL is not. You can use your display URL, you can use keywords in your display URL to communicate to people that your landing page is relevant to them. So you are not tricking people by putting a URL here that it doesn't actually exist. I mean, we couldn't go to example.com/buy umbrellas. That landing page wouldn't exist. But you're not tricking them, and you're not tricking Google. Google recommends that you do this, that you put keywords in there to show people that your landing page is relevant to what they just typed into the search bar. Also, another tip, if you're running out of characters, if you need to fit more words in than you have space to do, use an ampersand instead of the word and and that gives you 2 extra characters, which can come in handy a lot, especially if you use the word and multiple times.